Today on the Vantage Performance Podcast, a bit of an insight into the way Vantage Performance works today as we look at the big questions they always ask when they start to explore a new turnaround project. The key questions that will help them to understand what needs to be done and whether, in fact, a turnaround can be done. The 7 questions they always ask so you understand what a turnaround expert looks for. That's today on the Vantage Performance Podcast. And Michael Fingland joins me again, Vantage Performance's CEO and Executive Director. And I feel like you might be giving away a bit of intellectual property here, Michael, because, this is based on having been involved in lots of company turnarounds. In fact, can you actually put a figure on it? How many turnarounds have you been involved in?
Yeah, we've done over 150 now. So
wow, that's quite a few, isn't it? So 150 businesses saved over the 20 years or so that you've been doing this. And I guess over that time, you've managed to hone these questions that we're going to go through today. But does that mean if the answer to any of these questions is no, it can't be done, does that mean you walk away?
Yeah, the second question that we'll come on to around the first 100 days, that's one where we really need to be comfortable that there is a period of stability here that we can create. So we've got all the various levers that we can pull.
Right. Well, let's do the second question second. Let's do the first question first, which is, what are the changes? Is it obvious how you change the company?
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of drummed this into our guys for years now. When it comes to turnarounds, very rarely, and I mean very rarely, is there a temporary liquidity issue. So invariably, there's 1 to 2 big changes in strategy that are required to change the outcome. So you can't just tinker around the edges, and that's where a lot of turnarounds go wrong. So we're always looking, before we go into a situation, what are the 1 to 2 big changes? So
this isn't monetary. This could be, are they selling the wrong stuff? Have they got the wrong person in charge?
Product range, geographical sites. Do we need to change pricing? Is it a balance sheet issue? But invariably, it's their business model. What are the 1 to 2 big changes to the business model? Because if it's very, very difficult. This is really a secondary issue, but very difficult to rebuild the stakeholder confidence around a business if it's more of the same. Yeah, with a little bit more money, we'll be okay. Yeah. Invariably, that's not the case. We need to redesign the business model, the strategy, so you can build a new story around that. Invariably, that part of the business model is broken anyway. So we're always looking for, in the very first few days, if not before we get in there, because it'll throw up all the key issues very quickly if you're looking that way.
And are they normally fairly obvious, and are they realised inside the company, or are you often bringing a fresh outlook here?
It's a fresh outlook. It's the same old issue where if you're inside the business, you can't see it for yourself.
Yeah,
so
wood for the trees and all that.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's we see it very quickly because we've just done it so many times, and we know what to look for, and we're looking for it. That's the thing. So it's a reasonably quick process for us, but often it comes as a surprise to our clients. But that's why we're there, right? To come up with new ideas, a better way to help turn the business around.
Now, okay, we can do number 2 now, which is all about cash flow. Can you stabilise it, and how quickly can that happen? And I guess that is imperative, isn't it?
Yeah, for us, before we go into an assignment, or if we haven't got the data to be able to do this, we're working this out in the first few days, is can we stabilise the business for at least 100 days? It's one of our core internal business model tests, because we know if we can create a stable platform for 100 days, provide confidence to everybody, get in there, work out those 1 to 2 big changes, develop the plan, start executing. So and then all those big initiatives start kicking in towards the back end of that first 100 days. So always looking to make sure that we've got at least 100 days of stability, and because we know all the various initiatives that we can and levers we can pull to give that stability, and then you build on that, and then you roll out the second 100-day plan. So it's always one of the big things that we look for, and why we have such a big focus on improving cash flow in that first 100 days. Right.
And then if you've identified those key issues, I mean, how many of them can actually be changed? I mean, one of them, for example, could be that there's just a massive new competitor who is so good they're impossible to beat.
Yeah, this is a really big one for us. So you might have 3, 4, 10, and by definition you sort of blown it there, because really being key, you should try and keep it to 3 to 4, but sometimes they do have 10. But for us, this is a big one, because the more of the key issues that are inside their control to fix, the higher the rate of turnaround, the higher the chance of turnaround, because because we back ourselves to help them fix those issues. But as you say, if a lot of their key issues are outside of their control, so new competitors come in, economic downturn, industry disruption, they've lost a major customer. So a lot of those things are outside their control to fix immediately. Whereas a lot of the internal key issues, or issues that can be solved internally, there's a quicker road to fix those issues. So we literally, tally how many are inside and how many are outside their control.
A bit like the old SWOT analysis, isn't it, really, in a way?
Yeah, to another degree.
And I guess one of those things that you can control internally is who's running the company, and are they the right people, and are there any gaps?
Yeah, so this sort of covers off the next three questions. So invariably there are always management gaps. Some key people may have left, or a person in a key executive role is just not up to the challenge of that role. They might have been promoted recently and just don't have the expertise to really carry out that role, and particularly in a turnaround, which is very, very challenging. And often the skill set of someone going through a turnaround is different, or the skill set required is different to someone in a normal high growth, steady as she goes sort of business phase. So are there any gaps in the management team that we need to plug? And sometimes it's a matter of bolstering the team as well. So it's not about getting rid of the CEO or GM or CFO, but it might be we just need to bolster them for a period of time just to deal with the workload and take a lot of the restructuring activities, the bank negotiations and creditor negotiations, all that noise off them so they can focus on the core business. So management gaps is a key one. And the next one is really critical too. Do they have the energy left? It's something that we assess kind of in the background in the first meeting and the first week is because often by the time we get in there,
they've been through hell. Probably. Yeah,
they've been through hell already, and they've tried everything they know how, typically, and their energy levels are down. So a turnaround is always going to be. There's always going to be more flurry of activity and positive activity. But
so you march in there, you give a motivational speech, and everything, and 14 cups of coffee, and everything's right again. But I mean, I take your point. There might be some people who've just been through so much, they just don't have the energy to continue.
Do they have what it takes to continue on? Sounds a bit alarmist, but energy levels are critical in a turnaround, and what we can't afford is for them to sort of fall flat 4 to 6 weeks in. So it's something that we look at, and sometimes we ask them, are you up for this? Because it is going to be harder before it gets better, but it will get better. But are you up for it? Or do we need to bring someone in to do that heavy lifting for you so you can sort of provide some guidance from
and then sort of related again to that and to the point before about management gaps. Have you got the people in the team who are actually going to be able to be the right people to manage the turnaround?
Yeah, that's right. As I said before, in a turnaround, often the skill set required is different, as I said. So you might have a CEO or a CFO who's actually not the right fit for a turnaround phase, but is perfect once you've stabilised the business and you're back to growth. So quite often you might need to bring in, particularly there's a gap there, right? So you might need to bring in a turnaround CEO or turnaround GM, turnaround CFO, because they have the necessary skill set to go through this unique phase. And then once the business is stabilised, you then replace them with a traditional growth CEO or CFO. So that's something we also assess and again, it may not be replacing, but it might be bolstering. And that's typically what we end up doing. We put one of our guys alongside them to take the restructuring activities off their plate, and we call it the Chief Restructuring Officer, or that's what the industry calls it, and that's a model that works really well. So you can take all the non-core stuff away from them so they can focus on the business, and the turnaround actually happens much faster.
And so the final one is, where are they on the 5 stages of decline? You like your numbers, don't you? I thought we were almost at the end there, but the number 7 has 5 parts to it. So take us through the 5 stages of decline.
Yeah, so the Jim Collins, he's mapped out the 5 stages that a company goes through before they otherwise or eventually collapse.
Yeah.
So stages 4 and 5 are the critical ones. I'll let people go and have a look at it on their own time, but stages 4 and 5. So stage 4 is what he calls grasping for salvation. So what effectively what he means is a client's looking for that holy grail. So they're not focused on the core issues that need to be resolved, those 1 to 2 big changes that we talked about before. They're looking for this big holy grail, the big equity raise, the big sale, and if it doesn't happen, they basically very quickly go into stage 5, which is, as he calls it, capitulation to irrelevance or death.
Right.
So it's very, very US alarmist.
It doesn't sound good. It almost sounds like the only thing that's going to save them now is the Messiah, isn't it? Really, it's they're going to turn to religion because they've given up hope of anything else saving them.
That's right. So 5 is you either collapse or you've taken on so much water and you've ended up having to sell off so many parts of the business that you've come back to such a smaller scale that you'll never, ever get back up to where you were before. So you may not collapse, but you're invariably damaged for good.
So if you're saying if you're on 4 or 5, then you really don't entertain the idea. It's too late? Well, 5 certainly sounds too late.
No, it's not, but the probability of success is a little different. So most turnarounds come in, they're in that stage 4 process, early stage 4, late stage 4, where they've tried everything they know how, and now they've gone through 10 brokers trying to raise money, and it really is all or nothing on whether they get a refinance away or an equity raise away. Sometimes they've gone through that process, and as I said before, they're days away from closing the doors. And we've turned around a number of businesses like that over the years because we've been able to bring different thinking to it. But you've got to move really, really fast. So whether they're in stage 4 or 5, or they're just at the sort of back end of stage 3, invariably, a lot of businesses don't bring in a turnaround professional until they're at least into stage 4. But it just provides us with a very quick sort of framework as to where we think they are and where their mindset is, which is a big part of turnaround and getting confidence and trust. So they listen to the big changes that we have to execute quickly. And in turnaround, that's one of the big things is it's called the 40-70 rule, but you never get to a position in turnarounds where you've got the luxury of having assess something to 90% or 95%. You just don't have the luxury of time. So the 40-70 rule is one where you need to get to at least 40%, but closer to 70% of the analysis, and then make a decision. Because if you wait till you've got 80-90%, you're either dead or someone else has beat you to the.
No, I think that's a good. I mean, that was almost my rule in business. Always aim for the 70. Always aim for the 70%, because if you go beyond that, everything will have changed.
And then gut will take you the rest of the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's just a framework we look at to see where are they. It's a fantastic framework to have in the background to know where they really are at and what the probabilities are and some of the radical restructuring.
And it gives you the snapshot, to work with. Absolutely. Great stuff. All right, well, we'll catch you again very soon. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for taking us through this.
Cheers, Phil.
All makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Another Vantage Performance podcast with Michael Fingland from Vantage Performance. I'm Phil Dobbie. We'll catch you here again very soon. Thanks for listening.